Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise. Stop, listen, share. Everyone can make a difference. We are on a mission. Everyone should do something greater in their lifetime. Change the future. Be a proud member. Join us to support, volunteer, and donate.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, welcome to Stop Now. Hey, Melissa. I'm Nate. She's Melissa.
Hi. How you doing today, Nate? It's good to see you.
Yes, it feels like it's been forever since we've connected, my friend. So I'm glad we were able to both have our schedules line up at the same time this week. I'm excited for this week's episode. We had a little bit of a chance to chat with our special guest this week before we started rolling, but I think this is going to be a topic that will help a lot of people and bring awareness, to others that, might not know about what's going on in the world. So I'm excited, Melissa. Like, I feel like, we're anytime we're away, I feel the separation, but as soon as we're back together, it's just like riding a bike. We're back in sync.
Right, Nate. I was already excited, but all that you just said, I'm even more energized. So let's just hop on in and introduce our guest for today. Harold, hi, it's so wonderful to have you here. Can you introduce yourself to our audience and let them know a little bit about yourself?
Nate, I really enjoyed your the starting of the talk show of Stop Now. And I want to thank Stop Now for engaging and enlightening the community members on labor trafficking. And I think there's only 3 words for my introduction: that I'm a common man, I'm a failure, and I'm a sinner. Thank you.
Well, I think we can start, Harold, with, because I did a little bit of research getting ready for the show today, learning about your backstory and the journey that you went on. So could you share a little bit of that with the audience and why the issue of, human trafficking and modern day slavery, why that is something that speaks to you so deeply?
Yeah, because that's a very good question, Nate. And Stop Now what is doing. So I'm basically from India. And I'm from a very normal family, or you can say maybe like a poor class family, because my father was a farmer in Mangalore, Karnataka. So we didn't have running water or electricity growing up. But my father focused on education, so he gave us education. And it was always a dream for any Indian. And I think it's going to be difficult for Nate and Melissa, because any Indian to come to the United States of America is like coming to heaven. And even today, Nate and Melissa, there is a proverb in India that going to USA, America is going to Swarg. Swarg means heaven, and it's a truth. So this was my childhood memories and fantasies or dream, which I thought it was next to impossible because I never had a passport even when I graduated. But to cut the long story short, I was invited in 2003 to the United States of America on an H-1B visa. That's a legal work visa on a $75,000 salary as a business development manager. And rest is all history. You know that my story, I landed, and the very day I landed, I became a victim of labor trafficking and debt bondage. But today my passion and purpose in life is to be the voice, courage, hope, and freedom for all the victims, survivors, vulnerable population across the globe. I just would like to end on one note, is that I failed on 4 P's. I failed as a parent, I failed as a provider, I failed as a protector, and I failed as a person. But I flipped those 4 P's, and that is the objective I'm coming on the show today, is to tell all the delegates across the globe, is that come what may, you can turn obstacles into opportunities. And I converted those 4 P's into passion, purpose, power, and prayers. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That's good. I like that. So you it wasn't anything specific that just like really sparked your advocacy and, everything that it is you do? There wasn't like a certain event or anything, or it was just, the work that you started to do, when you started in America?
I never dreamt I'll be a survivor advocate. I was doing very well in India, but I landed here. I think it's all Almighty God's plan. And I think you need to go with the flow. And that is what I did. I became a victim and I went through a rough phase. I kissed death a couple of times. Like my perpetrator or trafficker hired a guy, hitman, to kill me. So when I say it's in reality, not like just in words. And there's a lot of trauma that has transpired in my life. But I told you, I've seen that in the United States of America, there are a lot of individuals of foreign nationals, like 90%, who are victims of labor trafficking. And from that 90%, 80% are male. And nobody's standing up and talking because it's a stigma, it's a shame.
Mm.
And then I realized that somebody needs to talk. And I said, I being an educated guy, I was doing the same stuff. I was trying to hide. For 10 years, I was not talking. I didn't want my story to go outside the four walls because it was a stigma, it was a shame. And I always say that's the reason I failed. I'm a sinner. When I say it, I really mean it. It's not that I'm just trying to say like that. I really did a lot of wrong things in my life. I couldn't take care of my own family. And just to give a small example, one of my sons was slapped full-fledged by my trafficker for no rhyme or reason in front of my own eyes to teach me a lesson, not to teach him. Because who would slap a child for no rhyme or reason when he or she has not done anything wrong? You would not even slap anybody on the road. And in case if somebody does even wrong, you try to discipline them in words, in a polite way. Mm-hmm. But that's the reason I said trauma has no expiration date. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things happen in life. And that is the reason I'm trying to educate people, because many times community members across the globe think that this does not happen. And my overall objective is to create awareness. See, America is the destination. Mm-hmm. India, Mexico, Guatemala, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh is the source. Mm-hmm. And we need to educate people at the source and tell them, please do not come to the United States of America undocumented or illegally. It's not worth it. If you come legally, it is heaven. If you come illegally, it is hell. Number one. Number two, you come legally like me, come with resources. Like note down the National Human Trafficking Hotline number. That's 1-888-373-7888. And they have 200 languages. And whenever you call, even if you don't have any documentation, they are not going to deport you. Other thing is that Nate and Melissa in the United States of America, for foreign nationals, traffickers and perpetrators use 4 words to the foreign nationals of immigrants. Number 1, I'll get you arrested. Number 2, I'll get you handcuffed. And when they say handcuffed, they do by action. Oh, do you want to get handcuffed? Number 3, I'll get you jailed. And number 4, I'll get you deported. And not a single foreign national would like to hear these words. But this is how they manipulate, trick, and trap them. Thank you.
So when you talk about the situation that you were in, Harold, how did you get out of it? Because, we see you today being this example, being this advocate, but, how did you get from there to here?
It was natural. It was like this, like you're in the sea, you're drowning and you don't know swimming. Yeah. And you're just struggling. So my situation was the same. I didn't get any help. This happened in 2003. Mm-hmm. And Nate and Melissa and my friends were watching. I was in Ohio, Cincinnati. This happened in Cincinnati, Ohio. There were 6 states in the United States of America where there was no law on human trafficking. No law in the year 2003. And Ohio was one of the states. In 2012, the governor passed a law that anyone who does a felony on human labor trafficking will get convicted, or he'll get imprisonment. It's a felony. So basically, you need to create a voice. You can make the difference. Mm-hmm. I fought for it, and when I was in that situation, like I worked for 18 months with no salary.
Wow.
See, one should understand. Nobody understands how this business works. I want to educate my friends, community members, including in the US, including Americans, everybody. Labor trafficking in the United States of America happens at many places, but I'll tell you four. One is restaurants, gas stations, convenience stores, motels. And at these four places, I've worked and I got re-victimized. And there are a lot of other places like agriculture, farming, warehousing. So I'm not going to name that. But at these four places, how does this traffickers operate? They will provide accommodation next door or within the premises to the victim. So lodging, boarding is taken care. Why? Number one, that labor is available 24 hours. Rain or shine, he or she cannot say, I'm not coming to work.
Right.
See, labor is very expensive in the United States of America. Number two, these victims do not have any bank accounts. Because mostly foreign nationals will come through the border. So that the perpetrator and trafficker always withholds a salary of minimum 8 months. And will tell the victim, okay, whenever you're going back to your country or whenever I'll give you the money. So that's what happens. Once your 4 or 5 months salary is in his clutches, you're done. You're in his control.
Yep.
See, this is a tactic. This is the way that they play the system. And then they say that, see, Americans, immigrants, ICE, they're coming to catch you. So it's a safe place here. Don't go out anywhere. Don't talk to any Americans. That is what my trafficker told me. Don't talk to any Americans. Once they come to, they do not like brown-skinned people. See, I was totally mesmerized. And these are the mistakes I do not want any innocent human being to commit. And that's the reason I'm trying to be an advocate and talk and share. It's not about me. It's about all the victims and survivors who are outside there. Somebody has to stand up. Somebody has to rise to the occasion. Somebody needs to rescue them. Somebody needs to empower them. Somebody needs to show them the path. They do not know their own human rights.
Harold, thank you for that. I think backbone of this project, and we are doing an experiment. And I wanted to welcome Shiva. He's also joining our team, and he wants to ask questions and he wants to listen to your. And I will play the devil's advocate here, and Melissa Nate will be soft. And you yourself mentioned that Americans are the one who helped you, and you have been a victim. So I'm just trying to put in some hard questions, if you don't mind, because you are a survivor. You are not in the victim zone right now. You have survived that. And I don't want to traumatize you. And I apologize if I ask you the wrong questions right away. And because this is to educate and bring in awareness, right? And you are doing a great service. So I just want you to move on, not to relive your past. And it's a painful thing, and you chose to do that, right? And you are doing it excellently. My question is, what made you to come up with your Eyes Open International?
Yeah, Eyes Open International just came out of the blue, or from the God's blessing. I got appointed by President Barack Obama in the year 2015 on December 16th. And I don't know how that happened. That thing was going on for 8 months. And I got a call from the White House in the evening at 6:30 on December 16th. That, Harold, congratulations, you have been appointed by President Barack Obama. And I come home, I take a shower. I was working for Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And then I was just about to go to bed. I said, let me check my phone. I checked my phone. And on the WhatsApp, I got hundreds of messages. And it was next day morning in India. And in all the newspapers, in the front page, my photograph was there all over the world. That Indian American appointed by President Barack Obama on the United States Advisory Council on Human Trafficking. So President Barack Obama had appointed 11 delegates. And I was one of them. And on January 5th, 2016, I was in the White House. And I was creating a lot of awareness. And then somebody told me, Harold, you should write a book. There should be a movie on you. And people, I thought, what are these delegates talking, including the FBI officials, everyone, law enforcement agencies, community members. And they should tell you, what a story, man. There should be a silver screen movie. You should write a book. And I used to wonder, what are these people talking like? It just happened that on August, and since I realized one thing, that I has to do a lot of presentation, but one-to-one has to be invited to talk across. And maybe when I was in Washington, D.C., so some delegate might have seen me speak from the White House. But I realized one thing, that when I was talking to a crowd of say 100, 500, maximum 1,000 people at a big conference in Washington, D.C. or in Chicago or at the UN. But I realized that, I did a research and I saw 2 people die here in the United States of America, victims with whom I worked. And I want to tell friends, when you buy a bottle of water, right? or you buy a Coke, what do? You drink and you pitch it. So that's what they do with in case of labor trafficking. They use you and then they throw you. So these two friends of mine died and their death went unnoticed. And that is when I realized this happened before, many years back. But it was like always hitting me like, come on, I need to do something. But on August 2nd, 2016, I started Eyes Open International. Officially, it was registered. Like it took me like a couple of years. Like it was on a very low profile. I didn't know how to start it, what to do. I had no clue. See, I'm a layman. I'm a common man. I didn't know anything ABC. But my overall objective was to be the voice, courage, hope, and freedom for all the victims, survivors, vulnerable population, community members. I tell people, even today, 80% of my time in the US and across the world, I spend time with the victims and survivors. Even today, if I get a call, I just drop everything and I go, even if it is 100 miles. I just go. During the pandemic, from the last year, even till date, I run groceries, produce, fruits to the victims and survivors' houses. Because during this time, I respect the Americans. There is a social distancing. All the churches, all the food pantries are closed. But who is going to support these people? Right. They are scared. Nobody's going. They lost jobs. They didn't get the stimulus package. And we run everything free. I just want to tell two things. I do two things. Number one, I say I'm a postman. Number two, I do not do for any money. We do not take one single penny from any victim or any survivor or any vulnerable population. And when I say postman, today if I know somebody, if I know Nate and he is into law enforcement agencies and is helping with somebody with the visas, I will just get them connected. So that's what I do. I connect people at shelter homes. So there are three types of status you can give to the foreign nationals. One is CP, continued presence, but that's a status. It's not a visa. And that you can get only if you're in the United States of America. Many immigrants do not know. Many people, Americans who are educated or many people from India or many immigrants do not know what is CP, continued presence. So that status can be given by any law enforcement agency on the spot. And that is like freedom for the victim. Number two, you can apply for a U visa or a T visa. And once you apply for that, after 3 years, you can apply for a permanent residency card, and that's freedom. And what we're looking at, that everybody on this planet who is born with freedom. Who are we to stop? Who am I to stop? Who are anyone to stop? And why should these perpetrators or traffickers take advantage? And we should focus on the perpetrator. Because when you save one victim, you save one survivor. But when you prosecute one perpetrator, you save 100 victims. And that is how Eyes Open International started. Thank you. And today we are doing very good across the globe. So we have operations in 5 countries and I'm planning to open branches in 50 countries. Because all these countries, it's the source. And I want to educate people, like I want them to live a happy life and they should be empowered. They should be educated. And somebody has to step up. We cannot just say, oh, no, there's a government. No, Joe Biden. No, Joe Biden is a president. We have to respect him. But we as individual community members or human beings, we need to step up our level. We need to help our neighbors, our friends, our families first, who are next door during the pandemic. Why should we wait for the government? Why can't we be ourselves be the government? Why can't we ourselves be the organization? And everybody has the power. And that's what I tell, never underestimate the power of a survivor.
I definitely want to talk about the H-1B visa in a second, Harold, but when you were talking about perpetrators being prosecuted, that brought to mind, the story that you had told earlier about how, you were treated during all this. And I'm wondering, like, was the person that perpetrated this against you, like, was he or were they ever held accountable for their actions?
See, what I told you, I came in the year 2003. And this all happened during that time. Until 2012, there was no law on human trafficking in Ohio. So my case went to the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, in the year of 2007. So that's the reason I am trying to press that, anybody who's committing a crime, especially in labor trafficking or sex trafficking, they get they should be prosecuted. But if you go to the data, Nate, Melissa and Shiva, that even today, out of 10, 9 do not get prosecuted. Go and check the data. So that is something, we need to focus as a community member. See, it is not just one individual. It's a teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. It's not just Eyes Open International. It's not my individual project. It's our every individual's project, human rights. We as community members have to rise to the occasion and help each other. So this is something fundamental.
The tougher question on here, sorry to interrupt on that, right? The tougher question here, right? So why are you putting the blame on the individuals, right? I understand you are saying that it is our responsibility to help each other and all. it's a national hotline and human trafficking network and Federal Bureau investigation agencies, government agencies are supposed to do their job. Threatened by your statement by saying that 9 out of 10 are not getting prosecuted. So which means the system is a failure. So American system is the failure. American system is at fault. And why don't we look at it in that way? Because if they have prosecuted all those people who are the perpetrators who are committing the crimes, this would not happen, right? So what the agencies are doing, we should be angry at them, right? Isn't that right?
No, Shiva, I'll not agree with you on this point. We should be thankful to these agencies because they're doing their job. Number one. Number two, it is not only the United States of America. You take India also. India, though nothing comes in at source. Forget getting in at the court. There are so many cases where it does not come to the law enforcement agency in India or many countries. At least in the US, it is being addressed. They respect. That's how I want to start in India an advisory council on human trafficking like President Barack Obama did. That's a big achievement across the world. It is the first time in the history of America that this has happened. So we need to respect that, number one. Number two, we cannot blame them. Today, the law is like that. Today, who are the perpetrators? They're multimillionaires. Do you know that? Multimillionaires. They got money. And number two, the victims, they're so weak. They say, okay, I'll kill your family. I know them. Who's going to support them? You know, he hired a hitman to shoot me, kill me. You have not seen blood. You've not been shot. It is one thing when you see in the movie, like you see The Good, Bad, the Ugly, or you see any movie. When you see somebody shot, you say, wow, it's such a big thing. But when an individual gets shot, blood comes out, and you're seeing death, then your vision will change. It's very easy to make a comment. Yes, to pass a blame. I always say, fix the problem, not the blame. It's very easy even during the pandemic. Oh, doctors are not doing this. Nurses are not doing this. Come on, there are few people in the system. That's right. But overall, we cannot blame the system. We have to encourage and empower the system. And that is what I'm doing. It was the FBI who fought my case. It is the law enforcement agencies who fought my case. It is the delegates of the White House who are trying to make laws in place today also. But these perpetrators are so powerful. You know it. It's open hand. Who has the courage to fight? Many people, I'll tell you, labor trafficking in the US. When something happens, that fellow runs. He leaves the state and he goes. Then with whom you are going to fight? He's not there in the court. So people are scared. I'm working on a project called Freedom Survey here for expungement for the last 2 years. And today I got a green signal from the governor's office, Mike Devine, and the Attorney General's office, Dave Host. Because I'm trying to work on it and they're supporting me. But it's something like it does not happen overnight. But I'm not trying to be harsh with you on this, but it's a reality. We need to accept it. We cannot blame the government or the law enforcement agency for no rhyme or reason, because they are doing their job and they have so many stuff in their bucket, right? It is not only they're working on your labor trafficking. They got 100 stuff going on in their life. Because I know when I work with the FBI agent, I know when I go to the White House, when I work with the law enforcement agency, with the police. I worked with the police also when I was in India this time, in October, November, December, with the police commissioner, with the constables. I did a presentation there at the police commissioner's office. So when you work inside, then you feel, oh my God, their job is tough. It's not easy. You know, like 24 hours they have to be on the road, working, and they don't get lunch, they don't get dinner. I didn't know that. They do not get proper nutrition. But then I said, oh my God, and I was so wrong. Same way with LGBTQ. I didn't know anything about LGBTQ. Like in India, people say Hichada. I worked with so many people this time when I came to India, with Manvinder Singh Goel. And then I realized these people are good. But as a childhood, I was told in the wrong way. So we have to change the thinking to change the life.
Really an interesting point there. I mean, yeah, there is a lot going on in the government and everything, but we can't fully rely on them. We have to, do some things, work ourselves. So I can agree there. We had a guest before, he was talking about the government. Remember that hyped up guy we had? He was fun, and he was saying, the government, they're not going to help us. We have to help us. We have to form these organizations in our communities to be able to get, what it is we need. If we're, not getting our stimulus packages, or we're not getting, what we're supposed to have, we need to try to form a united group or something like that, an organization, a foundation to be able to, get stuff done. No, it shouldn't be the way that it is. It's very unfortunate that it's some areas in the government or the higher ups, they have to go through such different, they can't eat or they have bad treatment or something like that. And it really is a shame. However, we do need to, figure some things out within ourselves, because unfortunately, it's not going to change. It's just sitting here like, oh my gosh, the government didn't do this or that. We got to, put in our own work, unfortunately.
And you need both. You need, the government to work, but you also need, like you're saying, Melissa, like that community, that internal help. And so, yeah, like, I think that's a great point to bring up, Melissa. And like Harold, like, you just talked about what the government is doing. One of the things you mentioned earlier was, and I wanted to make sure we got back to it before I forgot the point, was the H-1B visa. Now, do you think there are changes that can be made to that system that can maybe prevent things like what you and so many others have had to go through? Is there something that can be done about that to maybe make that a better system?
No, I think the system is in place. I'm talking like for H-1B visa, B-1, B-2 visa, F-1 visa. But only thing, the individuals who are coming, like I was so in 2003, I was so excited to come to the US that I never even checked what an H-1B visa was or is. Mm-hmm. Now I know it. I don't know what was my rights, I didn't know my own rights. Mm-hmm. So these are just basic things which I was ignorant of. So it's my mistake. But, then I just cannot say but today what I'm trying to say, I did a presentation at US consulate in Bombay, Delhi, Hyderabad. I meet them. I said, so anybody's coming for an H-1B visa or B-1, B-2 visa, give them a pamphlet which they're doing, tell them, these are the do's and don'ts. So if you're coming on a B-1, B-2 visa, you're allowed only to stay for 6 months. But what people do, this come here and their family and friends tell them, come on, stay back, man. Come and work at my motel or gas station, convenience stores. I'll get you a green card. I'll get you married. But that doesn't happen. He or she becomes a victim. I say, come, see, and go back. So there are, same way if you come on a C1D visa, Nate, C1D visa is a shipping visa or a vessel visa. This thing people go on the ship. Many people, they come and jump. There are so many Indians and now they got married. They're here for the last 10 years. They got kids, but that visa can never be corrected. They don't know. The law already has been set like that, but they're not aware. I tell them now, there's a credit. If you're coming to C1D visa, please go back. Don't jump or be in the ship because that visa can never, ever be corrected. So why do it when you know it? And always they say ignorance is no excuse in the court of law. And that is what we are trying to do. There are a lot of vulnerable population. There are a lot of people who are not educated. So we need to educate them. We have to stand up. We just passing the blame. I could also do the same stuff. I said, chalo, I'm happy now. Today I'm doing good. I got my freedom. I got my US citizenship. I am getting my stimulus package. My kids are doing good. My older son is working for Tesla. My biopic film is coming up. There's Martin Sheen is doing a film on me to be free. Come on, man. Hell with the world. Why should I bother? No. It's nothing about me. It's a blessing. But today, what I always believe that if you want to be the change, I need to stand up. Why should I say, okay, they're not doing it? I go and do so many presentations at the law enforcement agency, at the FBI, at the Homeland Security. I'm a consultant there. So I have to respect them. And they ask me, Harold, what can we do better? See, things cannot change. They are working on it. And things are changing. So we have to, classic example is my example. I would have been dead and today might have been my 15th year of death anniversary. And nobody would have known, he would not be interviewing me today. So today I'm a classic example of the law enforcement agency, of the community members, of the NGOs who supported me, who empowered me.
So you are saying like there is nothing wrong in H-1B visa program. So do you support the H-1B visa program or should it be abolished?
No. H-1B visa is good. L1, L2, all visas are good. All visas are in place. They are good. But what happens, Shiva, these people who sponsor them, there are few people, not all people, I'll say. They do it intentionally. What happened just now in New Jersey? R1 visa, religious visa, 100 Hindus. They just got 2 weeks back. FBI put a raid. Right? I don't want to get into the details, but I know everything because I've been working with them. Is that they were paid $1 salary per hour. Now those people are making a temple of $1 billion. Now you think they don't have that much common sense? They don't have so much humanity? This has to be taught to them. They do it intentionally. You think my trafficker was a pauper? He's a multimillionaire. He goes to the casino, he spends $20,000, nothing happens to him. He comes coming back smiling.
That's the point, right, Harold? The question is, right, you are not looking into the root cause, right? You yourself mentioned, right? I don't want to get into the religious things and those are different topic altogether. Even your case, right? You have been made as a role model to stand up for the human trafficking. but you are just one person, right? But there are thousands and thousands of people who leave the country because they are scared to report, and they don't want to say like, okay, I don't want to be a victim and say like, I'm highly educated, I'm an engineer, software engineer, and I'm in this visa, they are treating me like this. And they go back, right? And it's a non-immigrant visa, right? It has no path to immigration or green card or citizenship. So you yourself mentioned that like there are billion-dollar companies, no individual cannot fight against them. So then how do you justify that? Like it's an employee based visa, right? How can you justify that? It's because we talk to attorneys also, and a lot of human trafficking attorneys, they say that H-1B visa program should be abolished, but they can't do anything. They know that like in reality, billion-dollar corporations, they lobby it. And I want to come to that question of what is your role on the advisory council, like, because you are on the human trafficking side, and you yourself has been a victim of the H-1B visa, and you are still supporting that like this program should be there. I'm surprised.
See, I want to be honest. I do not believe in manipulation. I do not be sugar coated. Number one. Number two, I always say that I'm not into politics. I'm into policies. And even today, people ask me, Harold, you came to the US. What is your opinion? I tell everybody, even today, America is heaven. That's a reality. I said my things are not changed. And even people who are, I would not say that H-1B has to be abolished because I'm not the lawmaker. But as far as if some individual are getting opportunities from many countries, not only India, there are a lot of good companies. They are employing people on H-1B visa and they're thriving. They're doing really good and they got their US citizenship. But there are few people who are taking undue advantage. See, there's always, whenever you do anything on this planet, it's going to be there. People took advantage during the pandemic of that injection also, which was done by Cadila. People are selling some fake injections. Who will play with that when somebody's question of life and death? So we have to accept the reality that whatever you do, there will be some, but overall you have to see the thing, how it is. The thing, policy is good. Okay, one or two is there. We have to plug that thing, that gap. Coming down to the point of United States Advisory Council on Human Trafficking, I really respect what President Barack Obama did. I respect all the delegates at the White House, everybody, the President's Interagency Task Force, whether there are 18 agencies, the Homeland Security, Department of State, the FBI. And what we did was that, see, this is the report I submitted, or we submitted in 2020 to President Donald Trump. Okay. And whatever you submit in black and white is reviewed, recognized, rewarded, and they implemented. This is the report again we have done in 2019 with President Donald Trump, and this is all in black and white. This is the first report we submitted to President Barack Obama by the Advisory Council, and this was the second report. And this you can see it on the website also. And what we do is on the United States Advisory Council on Human Trafficking, they take all our suggestions very seriously. One thing I respect, that whenever I went to the White House or whenever any Advisory Council member, we go to the White House, they treat us as, first, number one, as human beings, number one. Number two, they always call us Honorable Harold D'Souza. I was so touched. And they will not talk about a story. So whatever, they consider us as experts. So whatever we say is like those golden words. They take it very seriously. And the advisors to the president, and they implement it. Until today, they are in touch with me because my term got over last year. I can serve only 2 terms. So I served 2 terms with President Barack Obama. I got reappointed during President Trump's time. Until today, they are coordinating with me. So that itself shows that they respect survivors. They respect survivors' experience. They respect survivors' opinion. They respect survivors' suggestions. And they do it. Today, they invite me to do presentations at the law enforcement agency. If they got like Blue campaign, I cannot give much details for the policies, procedures, and protocols, but they pay me. And they tell, Harold, can you go through this project and tell us before they launch it out? Mm-hmm. But this was not happening 4 years back. But today they're counseling a lot of survivors, and they ask, and I'm one of them. And I've done so many projects. I just did one last week for Blue campaign. And they told me, Harold, can you just go through this? Do we need to do any corrections? I was invited by Mike Devine, the governor, last year before the pandemic, to train and educate the entire Ohio State Patrol. There were 1,800 delegates. And I had to do some 12 presentations. I already did 3 and then pandemic came in. And so they invited one labor trafficking survivor and one victim of sex trafficking. So things are transforming, Shiva. I'm not trying to say it's not happening, but things are changing. But see, we need more people. See, today what Stop Now is doing is very good. I think this organization you all started on your own. So I was really respecting that. When I was talking to JK, I said, wow, there's something good. You all got together and created this out of nowhere and of thinking of humanity, of human rights, educating people, empowering them. This is very huge. And especially during the pandemic. So I salute you all for what you all are doing now.
That was nice. So how about, people sometimes, don't want to go forward and, speak out and stuff like that. You talk to a lot of different survivors, or they may still be victims. Do you come across anybody that, you may have told them, don't work with this company, or, get out of this cycle of labor trafficking, and it actually didn't work out the way, you would have liked it to work out? It turned out bad, or, they ended up having to leave, or they got themselves into more trouble?
See, this is a very good question, Melissa. I always tell all the delegates, even today, right now, whether it's Melissa, Nate, or Shiva, and I always tell people to save the number on the cell phone, the National Human Trafficking Hotline number. I'll give you a small example. One of my friends is an American. He worked for an airlines company. He told his boss, she was a lady, and then I never met her, but she was following me on my social media, and then she came to know all the red flags. So one day she was filling gas at a gas station, and she recognized that something is wrong. So she called the National Human Trafficking Hotline number. See, you or anybody, you don't have to get involved. If you see some red flag, just call that number. They'll take care of it. So even the perpetrator does not know who called. The victim also does not know who called, but the victim will be rescued, or they'll do a research if it's a genuine case. So I work with a lot of victims, and today also you'll not believe. I'm doing this freedom survey report. People are hesitant to fill the form. I meet some Mexicans, Guatemala. I said this is very confidential. Well, they know what is they'll come and get me deported. So, but I talked to them. Then I put my name. I said I'm trying to help you out, and then they see me now. They know me now, so they say okay. So they trust me. See, for any foreign national or immigrants here, they are scared.
Yeah.
Because the psychological pressure is so much that I'll get deported, I'll get arrested. So unless you talk one-to-one, and yet you need some person who's very neutral. So when my case was with the FBI, I was very scared. I said that lady will deport me. So I was not sharing anything. And people also told me, you're done. But I just want to share one thing. Once that FBI agent who had more than 25 years of experience, and once she realized that I was a victim of labor trafficking, she flipped. When I say flipped, means from a law enforcement agency lady who was like, I would not say who was like a terror or something, but who was very strong, like mentally and spiritually, like if somebody's a trafficker, she'll put them behind bars. But in my case, when she realized that I'm a victim and I'm a survivor, she came to me like a mother. So that changed me, and that is how I started gaining confidence in her. She got Indian food to my house. She interviewed a lot of people. I just want to give a small example that when you are in a power, how you can flip things. So one day she had come to my house, and she used to always come to my house. She used to always take me in her car. But Harold, you're not going to, I didn't have a driver's license, nothing. So she used to always come, take me to her office, do everything. I never spent a penny. She got me the continued present status at my house. That's why I respect. And I was a brown guy. She could have just kicked me off. But she, on the contrary, she came and hugged me. So one day she came to my house and she realized this guy is something wrong. He's not like talking to me like openly or frankly or something, So she went out, and again she came back. She knocked the door and opened the door, and then she looked into my eyes and said, Harold, my job is to come and help you. My job is to come and give you a green card, she said, permanent residency card, and to get you freedom. I'm not here to get you arrested or deported. And you might be working under table to support your family on cash. She said that. And that's not my job. You do whatever you want to do to support your family. But my job is here only to come and give you freedom, to give you a status and not to deport you. I'm here only for that. And that touched me. I was working in a store under table cash. I thought if she comes to know, she'll deport me.
Right.
See, my thinking was so wrong. But she said no. And I don't know whether she knew it or no. But then she told it. See, I always tell law enforcement agencies, tell it out as a person. And then my confidence built on her. And today, you'll not believe, Pamela A. Matson retired FBI special agent. He is on the board of directors of Eyes Open International. And that helps all the victims and survivors. I tell them, see, here, they're coming to help you, not deport you.
I think that's a really important part of law enforcement, and it's something, Melissa, you and I have talked about in regards to other issues, whether it's like Black Lives Matter or the way police interacts with the community. Like the way that she looked at you, Harold, not as a case or as a problem I need to fix, but as a person.
Yes.
Supporting their family. And I think the more law enforcement people we have that view these people as individuals and people with families just like theirs, I think the better the situation can be.
Though I wanted to trouble you with tougher questions, I feel like you are a brave and courageous person, right? You fought and you are smart, intelligent, and come out successful. And I really appreciate what made you to go on this journey of making it as a movie, right? You said like your story is getting into Hollywood or maybe Bollywood. I don't know that. Can you enlighten us, like what's going on over there? And did anybody call you like you are a snitch and you diss the Indians and accuse them and become free?
I never even dreamt of a movie, a Bollywood or Hollywood movie. So Martin Sheen is doing a movie. I think everyone knows Martin Sheen, and Ben Nathan, he's the producer director. He's a very good. He's become a very good family friend of ours, and he had come to shoot here a couple of years back for my son, Bradley D'Souza, who was the youngest board of directors for Prevent Blindness. So always tell age is just a number, and I always give my own example that you might be a pauper, but you can change your path. I always tell what your mind can conceive and believe you can achieve. I was as good as homeless, penniless, jobless, nothing, no status. And for any common man to survive in the United States of America, you need 4 things. You need a state ID. You need a social security card. You need a work permit, and you need freedom. I never had any of these. I always say resilience. Desire changes nothing. Decision changes something, but determination will change everything. So coming down to the point of movie, I never thought of a movie, Shiva. My article had got published in Humans of Bombay. I think, I don't know, a couple of years back, it went viral. Then a lot of film producers, every film producer contacted me. Netflix, you name it. And then last year I was in India, October, November, December, to sign the life right agreement. So I met everybody. First time in my life, I visited all the 5-star hotels in Bombay. Earlier, I used to just see from outside. But then they came to India, they came to the US, the script writers. So I think during the Cannes Film Fair Festival, the producer directors who are international celebrities, they are going to announce. I cannot at this point do because I have signed a life right agreement. So it is a big silver screen blockbuster film coming up like Dangal, or you name it like Lion. So they're trying to do a film basically on me, a biopic. That's one. And number 2, I told you the teaser trailer is out of To Be Free by Martin Sheen and Ben Nathan. And this all happened on their own. I didn't do anything. I never even dreamt. And when they contacted me to do a biopic, blockbuster film, I was telling them, are you sure that you have to do a film on me? And they said, yeah. I said, are you joking? And they were like all very serious. So I met all top delegates, all film stars, and in fact, Irfan Khan was to do my role. Because this has been going on for at least more than a year, but then, Irfan Khan died, So they are going to select, I'm not going to act in that movie. So somebody is going to play my role. So thank you, Shiva. You can ask me any questions. I'm open.
Oh, just an incredible story, from somebody that was a trafficking victim to becoming an advocate, and working with, presidential administrations, and now, having a film made about them. I guess my last question for you, Harold, would be in terms of somebody that might be watching that is either just out of that situation that you were in, or maybe knows somebody in that situation that you were in. Like what advice would you give to those people out there that want to help but might not know how?
Oh, who wants to help? You're talking about the community members?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, see, number one is that if you can help, that's good. But if you cannot help, you can always follow, like maybe Stop Now organization, like what is there. You can contribute over there, follow them. You can even follow us at Eyes Open International. I'm on the Facebook page. We have a website called www.eyesopeninternational.org. And number two is that whenever you go to a restaurant, you go to a gas station, especially when you go to a restaurant, start a conversation with a waiter or waitress and say, hey, hello, how are you? And if you find it's he or she is a foreign national, hey, when did you go back to your country? And they will not open up in the first meeting, or during the pandemic, just say, hey, did you get your vaccination?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can I drive you down to get your vaccination? So that person, wow, somebody's trying to help me out.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start that conversation, he or she will come out and tell, because they need to gain confidence.
Right.
The biggest problem is trust. And that cannot be cultivated overnight or in one meeting. That is one thing. And I just want to convey one message for the victims and survivors, or the vulnerable population, people like who have lost jobs, people are going into unemployment, people are into broken relationship, people are going through a lot of health issues or trying to surrender. I want to tell them that suicide or silence is not a choice, is not an option or not a solution. When you commit suicide, it's not a suicide, it's a murder. Because community members stigmatize them. We can't call them. I know so many victims or survivors commit suicide. Because that's why nobody comes up and stands up and talks. Because once you come and say, I'm a survivor, in reality, you get stigmatized. You'll not get a promotion. No one will ask a survivor, hey, what is your passion? What's your dream? What is your talent? But they'll ask a student. They'll ask a normal person, hey, which college you're going? What do you want to be in life? But no one will ask a survivor. Oh, he or she is a survivor. That's fine. He's done. Why? Why can't a survivor become a CEO of a company? Why can't a survivor be a manager? Why can't a survivor be a vice president? Why can't a survivor start his or her own salon or her own business? Who are we to stigmatize them? We need to empower them. And that's what I want to tell all the victims and survivors today. If you cannot predict your future, because people say, I cannot predict my future. Pandemic is going on. I didn't get a stimulus package. I don't have a job. I have a broken relationship. I'm sick. I got cancer. Come on. When time comes, you'll go. Nobody gets permanent visa here, including Biden, including me. We get only 36,000 days of visa. That's 100 years. 100 years I'm not going to live. But I tell them, if you cannot predict your future, create your own future. I created my own future. You can create. You got to work for it. In 5 years, you can create your future. Come what may, nobody can stop you. And nobody can kill you. Even if it is cancer, you can fight cancer. Even if it is pandemic, you can fight pandemic. Even if you're a victim of labor trafficking, you can fight it. That perpetrator might be a billionaire. But I'm a trillionaire by heart. And come and stop me. Nobody can come and stop me. Because when you're honest, you're true. Nobody has the guts. Because God is with you. Your heart is with you. I challenge. Come. Now my perpetrator cannot come in front of me. He comes, he cannot even look into my eyes. And one day he told me, Harold, you cannot move 1 inch away from my eyes. What God did? 1 inch, God put me straight to the White House. Now what? Then I travel all over the world. And here I am. Come and kill me. No. Even if he kills me, Eyes Open International will continue. Harold D'Souza is going to die one day. But Eyes Open International will never die.
Of Harold, you bring in so much energy and passion, and you beat us all. That's really wonderful. As we discussed offline, right? We will try to run a marathon every week with you, hopefully to fundraise for your Eyes Open International, and we would love to partner. And I just want to open the door for Stop Now to have that connection, and also whatever we can do, we are ready to do on that. Hats off to you, Harold, for doing such a wonderful job. And Melissa, if you have any final questions.
Thank you. That was motivating and inspiring to me. I said, I'm going to go build my future as soon as I hop off on here. But it's just been wonderful talking to you. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for all that you do. And your energy is amazing. So it's been great. Thank you again for coming and joining us today.
Oh, great. I really appreciate what you all are doing for victims or survivors or community members, especially for human labor trafficking. So thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise. Stop H-1B Visa, a campaign to end modern slavery. True stories, life-changing moments. Stop, listen, share. Join us. Call us. Together, we create the future.